Hello everyone, my name is Lowko, and welcome to a professional match of StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a Protoss versus Zerg, a pretty long Protoss versus Zerg as well. Look at that, it's nearly a half-hour long match between two of Europe's very best. So spotting right here in the upper left, playing in blue, we have none other than Mana. His opponent down in the bottom right, playing in red. We're looking inside of the main base of SortOf, and well, this particular series is, of course, played on the brand new PTR. It is the PTR with all the bugs. I am expecting that sometime this week we will be getting an update to the PTR, but honestly, I don't really know. The thing is, there are quite a few issues and quite a few complaints that need to be addressed, and maybe most importantly, there's also a bunch of bugs. Remember how in the most recent cast that I did, I mentioned that Microbial Shroud could still be researched? That was a series on the PTR between Björn and Solar, and I've since figured out that yes, you can still research Microbial Shroud on the Infestor, but it's literally just 150 minerals and 150 gas gone, because you don't need to actually research it to use the ability. Like, you can research it, but the only thing you're doing is you're wasting time, resources, and I guess, yeah, you're delaying an inevitable neural parasite research too. It's a little bit funky. I don't know. There's a bunch of weird bugs on the server right now. Shouldn't really be that big of an issue as long as the players here are aware of it. But for example, the changelings dealing a lot of friendly fire and potentially also splash damage to the opposing players' units. I don't think any of that really is meant to be. Either way, this is going to be between Mana and SortOf. Big shout out right here to Mana for sending over the replays. Definitely make sure to go ahead and check out his YouTube channel too. He's been making a lot of awesome content, and he's been busy, definitely also practicing on the new PTR. So I did already check out some of Mana's games a few days ago, and we learned that Mana is a big fan. I don't know if it's going to be in this particular instance either, but he's a big fan of getting the Warp Gate research early, but then not actually transforming the gateways into warp gates potentially ever. He was effectively producing with Protoss units as if they were Terran troops. So real quick, in case you are not 100% up to date on all of the changes made on the PTR, basically the warp gate research has been moved over from the cybercore onto the gateway. You can still research it, so he decides to go for the upgrade right now, but it's not going to automatically... Sorry, he's going for the adept right now. We'll probably see him get the upgrade for warp gates in a moment, but it will no longer automatically transform all of your gateways into warp gates. Instead, for each individual gateway, you have to spend 50 minerals and 50 gas to transform it into a warp gate. However, if you don't, you can produce out of your regular gateways 35% faster than you ordinarily would be able to. Long story short, it seems to be that if you make a whole lot of gateways and you're playing defensively, you want to be keeping them in regular gateway form, and then when you go on the offense, it would make the most sense to then transform them on over to a warp gate instead. It's a very curious setup. A lot of people are quite divided on it. Like, some people really like it, it seems, but it's basically forcing Protoss to now relearn the entire early game. And obviously, while Zerg and Terran also have to make some adjustments here and there, it's not nearly as significant as what is expected here from Protoss. So here we go, look at it. We get the little glowy ball over here as well in the middle of the gateway. That is the indication that indeed that research is ongoing. Stargate opener though here for Mana. We have a bunch of adepts going around, and this does remind me a lot more of the current patch. Right, I mean, adepts into what looks to be oracles, very common. A little bit of miscontrol here by SortOf. Oracle indeed on the back of this. And this is going to be at least 5 workers. Yeah, quite significant here so far. Good work by the Polish Protoss player, who's going to be getting, I guess, just a straight-up production speed increase. Nexus here at 4 minutes. So keep in mind, of course, that we're starting with 8 workers now. That means that this 4-minute third Nexus is extremely greedy. It's before a second gateway. It's off of just 2 gateway units too. Normally you would make the second gateway and actually 3 gateway units before planting this thing down. I guess we're gonna keep that Oracle here defensively for a little bit longer. Energy recharge onto the Oracle as well before moving out. But these Zerglings should be held. Yeah, not a big deal. Not even the Pulsar Beam here gets activated. Mana did hit, I think, a bit of a delay here. Maybe a supply block or something on the second Oracle. That may also be the reason why that first one hasn't yet moved out. Yeah, a little interesting. Okay, now, normally, 5 workers killed. It is gonna allow Protoss to go for some hyper-aggressive follow-ups. Because adept skilling that many probes or that many drones here on the Zerg side of the map is a really big deal. It effectively means that Zerg just has to play catch-up, and any sharp timing attack on the back of it is going to be extremely difficult for Zerg to hold. It kind of comes down as well, though, to the Protoss macro, right? So you get such a quick third, but then also a bit of a supply block. You may be negating some of the advantage. Nexus here does finish up. Keep in mind that the Nexus no longer provides as much supply as it used to, although apparently some of those values are also bugged. Actually, is it on the command center or on the Nexus? I don't know. One of the two is providing more supply than it says in the patch notes, which is a bit of a meme. All right, anyways. Blink coming up right now inside of the Twilight Council. And even though we have warp gates done, we are not going to be producing those Blink Stalkers out of the warp gates themselves. We're just making them out of the gateways. Okay. Lair coming up in the meantime on the other side of the map. We've got ourselves the Evo Chamber building too, so we'll probably go +1 melee if I were to make a guess. Just makes the most sense. Sort of right now, though, a little bit late on the gases. Honestly, all of this is looking a little bit messy. It's just not particularly smooth. The entire idea, right, behind getting a quick Evo Chamber and quick +1 melee is to make sure that you can shut down Blink Stalkers. Now, I don't really know even if Mana is going to be super committed. Oh, no, he is bringing a probe. Okay, so I guess the idea is to build up a proxy pylon and then transform the gateways into warp gates. Oracles now show up. Yeah. One Stalker ended up dying there, really not the end of the world. They've also flattened the amount of time that it takes to warp in units. So there's no more... Ooh, good stasis. There's no more speedy warp-ins available, or slow warp-ins. Like, everything is now 3 seconds flat. That is faster than what we've had in the past. So is now the moment that we transform the gateways into warp gates? Because he just produced another 4. Yeah, there we go. So that is 200 minerals, 200 gas to now transform those structures on over. And I guess we're going to be warping in units here pretty quickly now. Funky, right? I mean, now he doesn't have the money, though, to be warping in units. Yeah. Because he just spent it all on moving those gateways over into warp gates. I don't know. We're going to have to blink those units to the back. It's going to be okay for now, though. The number of Zerglings is just not sufficient. And like I said, that +1 melee was a little bit disjointed from everything else. So Mana is still going to be able to move up towards the high ground. Oracles, though, are out of energy now. And just the sheer numbers here that the Zerg has are going to be quite difficult to hold. Quick second Evo Chamber, too. Ah, Infestation Pit on the back of this. I mean, Microbial Shroud with Zerglings is actually quite viable now. Or viable, there you go. I did the Dutch V for a little bit. They're quite viable. If you go back to my early YouTube uploads, I say every V like an F. Not ideal. Anyways, charge on the back of this right now together with the Templar Archive. So we will be going into Storm and Archons momentarily. Still, though, I think that Mana was probably hoping to get a little bit more value than what he's gotten so far. I mean, he's got some really good stasis wards, but this Blink Stalker build doesn't seem nearly as smooth. Yeah, the proxy pylon is nice and all, but did it really add a lot in the mix? Like, that's the weird thing about it. You get the proxy pylon up, and then you have to transform the gateways into warp gates, so you no longer have money to then warp in units. I don't know, man. Bit funky. Anyways, energy recharge did get used just now onto that High Templar, and it's all because the Psionic Storm upgrade is coming. Sort of going into a pretty fast hive. Again, 8.5 minutes is not unheard of in the current meta. But again, we started off with less workers, so all of those times are, well, definitely a little different than what we're used to. Yeah, I think honestly, like Ultra Ling with Microbial Shroud could actually be kind of sick. I'm not sure if it is. Like, in theory, in my mind, it sounds kind of sick. But it could be absolutely god-awful. I don't really know. But it could be kind of sick. So, Microbial Shroud, the range of the ability has been increased substantially. And like I mentioned, you can still research the ability inside of the Infestation Pit, but apparently you don't need to. You can just waste 150 minerals and gas instead, but that's not really a necessity at all to be able to use the ability. But because the range has been increased, and since the Infestor now also has an auto attack, so it's not as likely to wander and just YOLO into a Protoss attack ball, kind of like the High Templar have, you know, like they throw the little water balloons. Infestors now effectively do the same thing. you can keep them alive for a little bit longer, and with the extra range, it might just be doable to get some real damage done with a unit composition, indeed. That is Ultra Ling. And then some Infestors for support. Big Zergling run by as well. In the meantime, though, on the left side of the map, we're going to need some big storms over here. That's a pretty spicy storm. Storm has been nerfed a little bit. So 100 damage now over time, rather than what we're used to. Ugh. One of the High Templar does go down. 100 rather than 110. Fungal Growth, of course, also still a potential attack, but Mana did snipe one of the Infestors just now, and he also did kill the hatchery here on the right side of the map. Zealots being warped in? No, not warped in. Ah, dude, I will never get used to this. So we have 4 warp gates and 6 regular gateways. This kind of hurts my StarCraft brain, man. Like, it makes sense, but it's weird. But it does make sense. Because why would you want to be spending the money right now to transform them over if you're not planning on being aggressive anyways? But now we have half of the gateways or so in warp gate mode, and then the other half in regular gateway mode. Is this really the way you want to proceed? Oh, another High Templar there does die to a couple Zerglings. Ultras now with chitinous plating coming up. SortOf's economy is not great, but it's also far from the worst. The problem is he does kind of need to keep this base alive. Fungal Growth, oh, it's nice, but the feedback ability is even better. And now with Mana knocking down another one of those bases, SortOf's eco really is becoming problematic. The thing is that Ultras, I don't think, will be trading too effectively. Although I say that with some mass transfusion. Chitinous plating not yet done, though. With some mass transfusion of the Queens, you could have like one hero Ultralisk. The one immortal Ultralisk, but we should probably wait. This upgrade is a really big deal for Ultras, and then the same as well over here for the +2 carapace research. Big Zergling counterattack. Shield battery, though, has been set up. Adrenal glands not yet done, so these links are not going to have an easy time really killing anything here. Yeah, and now those extra warp gates are going to be used. So we had 7 gateways producing, or 7 zealots getting warped in simultaneously, but 3 of them out of a regular gateway, and then 4 out of the warp gates. Okay. I feel what I would do is just transform them all over to warp gates just to make it more easy for myself. It's not the right play, but I feel like that is how a lot of people are just simply going to proceed. It's like once you transform one gateway into a warp gate, I wouldn't be surprised if most ladder heroes are just going to be transforming literally every single one of them into a warp gate every single time. All right. These Ultras are kind of scary, though. Like, these Ultras do not mess around. There are 2 Immortals in the mix, though. And the Immortals can put in a lot of work. But there we go! Microbial Shroud together with Fungal Growth. Honestly, look at these Ultras. These Ultras suddenly look very immortal, whereas the Immortals don't look nearly as immortal anymore. One of them does get fungled. Transfuses as well from the Queens. What are we witnessing, man? The Zerg just absolutely destroyed that Protoss army with, honestly, a pretty mediocre engagement. There were a ton of things that could have gone much better there for the Zerg. Everything felt really disjointed, but SortOf actually helped that quite nicely. It turns out with Microbial Shroud, Ultras actually beat Immortals. Okay. That's a weird sentence. In the meantime, though, +1 air weapons are researching. The only thing now available in the Cybercore, of course, is air upgrades. More links going around the sites. Yeah, I think you do have to back up. Neural Parasite coming up for SortOf. Spire also building inside of the main base. We have triple Robo pumping out Immortals, and then we've got ourselves a lot of gateways still pumping out Zealots too. Yeah, I guess what it ultimately comes down to, or what it, all really boils down to, is that Protoss just needs like an extra hotkey now to be putting all of their gateways on. And because you normally transform them all over to warp gates, you never really needed that. Anyways, I guess if we have this much income, we don't really need to worry too much about Zealots for a little bit. It's just going to be the main mineral dump, because 4 Tempests are being produced simultaneously. These Zealots are just going to get wrecked. Feedbacks, yet again, though, are a big deal. Hatchery in the upper right also gets destroyed. Little Zealot run by over here at the bottom. Yeah, now that the Lynx are getting into fully upgraded territory, adrenal glands just make such a big difference. They will be able to actually fight that. Don't do it, Brenda, no. So in a weird way, SortOf actually doesn't want to have full energy on his infestors. A full energy infestor gets one shot by a High Templar feedback. So you're kind of encouraged in a very cursed way to keep using the infestors. Just because if you don't, you're very likely to lose them. So by exposing them, you're more likely to not lose them. It's one of the weird interactions between spellcasters in the game. Once upon a time, High Templar did that to practically every single spellcaster out there. But they halved the amount of damage that the feedback ability does. Anyhow, while we still have a pretty big ground toss army, Mana is getting himself the mothership right now. We're getting the +2 air weapons too. And obviously the Tempest production has already been going for a while. 6 of them available right now. And Mana is maxed out once more. The Ultra count is big. But what are they really going to be able to kill? This is basically a Protoss army specialized in killing Ultras. Keep in mind that the Ultras do have that Frenzy passive that basically allows them to not really get stuck up on anything. You still need detection for cloaked units, but they don't really care much about any sort of crowd control. There's Microbial Shroud thrown onto the queens. Tectonic Destabilizer's also coming up for mana. Oh, you gotta go here. Yeah, you kind of have to go here as the Zerg. Fungal growth is nice. But what in the world, yeah, are you gonna actually kill the Tempest with? That was a spicy looking fight for SortOf, but it really didn't do anything. But we had so many Ultras, I guess, that we can also use them for the counter-attack. Recall is gonna be used on the Immortals. They pop out on the other side. Microbial Shroud gets thrown down yet again. Wait a second. A lot of the Ultras, though, are not underneath the Microbial Shroud. Look at the auto-attack over here from that Infestor. It's so cursed. Yeah, it's still a very expensive ability to cast. I think it's 75 energy, if I'm not mistaken. So it takes quite a bit for an Infestor to be able to cast the Microbial Shroud ability. And even though you do have more range on it, you still don't really want to have a maxed out Infestor on full energy. So it's a very interesting dynamic that we've all of a sudden arrived at. Keep in mind that the ability itself hasn't really been made any stronger. Like, Infestors have always been able to use the ability like we've seen so far. The interaction between Ultras and Microbial Shroud and then Immortals, it hasn't changed very much at all. It's just that now getting to Microbial Shroud is much easier. So you could have already done this in the current live version of the game. It's just more likely, I guess, for Zerg to now build that sort of thing up. A second Spire. Huh. You could go Ultraling Bane into Infestors into Broodlord Infestor? Broodlord Infestor is still one of the most sustainable unit compositions out there. But it's just difficult to really build it. Mothership is now recalling a bunch of units towards it. Okay, that's apparently the Zealots. That may have very well been useful over here. Either way, the only warp gates available at this point in time are the 4 from the early game, when the Stalkers were going around. No more unit over there in the wall off, so that means that we are going to need some defenses. But you know what? There's so many Immortals available. How many Ultras do we have? There's still 8 of them out. Still, though, 8 Immortals, too. There's the Microbial Shrouds again. Fungal growths as well to try and prevent this all from escaping. Neural Parasites go down to help the Immortals kill more Immortals. But there's no anti-air. Ah, that's coming now. 14 Corruptors on the back of this. Yeah, we have some Tempest here, I guess, helping out, too. Wow, the Tempest actually ended up killing the Mothership just now. SortOf with probably about the perfect fight. Fungal growth to prevent the chase. In the meantime, though, we did have a large group of Zealots making their way to the bottom. And even though the Cocoons are still here, yeah, a lot of the Zerg units did end up dying. And the same can be said for that Hatchery. And even though Mana did lose a lot of units just now, he is going to go for a move out. And I'm a little bit afraid because of where are those Corruptors? We have 14 of them. We should be getting them into the fight here real soon. Recall is available, though. The Mothership and the Nexus do not share a recall cooldown. So that is now allowing Mana to get back home. Very spicy game. We're going back to Ultras again. 13 Infestors have died this game. 17 High Templar. What the heck is going on? 10 Ultras, 13 Immortals? This is so strange. Only 2 Tempests died, by the way. The Tempests apparently are the most sustainable unit so far. Not usually how it works. Both players, though, have decided that they want to take a little bit of a breather, and I can't blame them. It's a really difficult situation to judge. Because, like, we obviously have full vision of the map, right? Like, we can see how much mining there is. But not only are these two playing some very unexplored unit compositions, they are also having to make educated guesses as to how much the opponent has. And all of these fights are so weird. All of those engagements are just so unorthodox that it's difficult to really decide, okay, am I ahead? Am I behind? What do I do right now? So both of them have decided, okay, it's time to macro. 2 bases taken in the bottom left. Mana taken on 1 in the upper right here. Bunch of static defense coming up here for the Protoss. Yeah. I've been liking what Mana has been doing for pretty much the entire game, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. SortOf is maneuvering around the map like he owns the place. This may actually be a game-deciding fight right over here. Microbial Shroud's thrown down again. Keep in mind, it only works on ground units, but that is a beautiful spot, although the Ultras are kind of derping around. Archons should be underneath all of the Tempests, though. They should be firing at the Corruptors. Yeah. Okay, now this is good enough here for Mana. Almost a disaster. I think we also have a couple of stacked Microbial Shrouds there, if I'm not mistaken. Greater Spire coming up right now for SortOf. +3 air weapons will be done pretty soon. Yeah. +1 armor on the back of it immediately. I think we should be seeing more of this. Just Ultras and Zerglings counterattacking is extremely annoying for Terran, or for the Protoss right now. Also very annoying for Terran for what it's worth, but this is actually a scary type of fight. Zealots are not a really good match against Ultras most of the time, like not with these type of numbers. So the Ultras can actually take care of them pretty easily. And obviously we don't just have 24 warp gates available to be warping in a gigantic round of units right now. So Protoss has to sort of be pre-split in order to deal with this, but obviously the Protoss units are so much slower than the Zerg or the Terran units are. So, yeah, do you really want to be pre-splitting? Do you have to make more static defense? Should you be transforming more of your gateways into warp gates? There's many different questions. And at this point, the answers are not entirely clear. Look, now we have 3 Tempest tied up to cleanup duty. This is kind of weird, man. You guys are like the CEO of the freaking army. Why are you being the janitor as well? Maybe it's good for troop morale or something, but it's very risky because Mana needs to have his big units together. No more Mama ship available either for recalling. And that's the problem here for Protoss, man. They're split so thin. Yeah, these Tempests are gonna die. They need to be recalled right now, otherwise they're dead. Okay, it's too late. They're dead. In the meantime, yep, fungal growth over here. Microbial Shrouds, neural parasites. Infestors have just low-key become the very best spellcaster in the game because of a Microbial Shroud buff. Still though, a lot of the Ultras here are dying. Despite the fact that they were underneath the Microbial Shroud, there's just so much firepower in this type of army. SortOf has to scurry home again. I can't blame him for jumping at that opportunity because he thought, okay, I got all the spells, right? We got a fungal growth, we got a Microbial Shroud. I've got all the units cornered. But then the Ultralisks also were doing their ultra derpy abilities, their ultra derpy movement. They didn't quite get the job done. Now suddenly a Zealot run by over on the left side is kind of scary. New units are being made here for Mana to max out with too. A couple Zerglings here for the offense, but that's not really going to be that much of a bother. Wait a second. Now we have so many Corruptors up in the air, but not a lot of anti-ground available anymore for SortOf. Another hatchery actually did die in the bottom left too. I thought that the Zealots were done, but they ended up sniping an additional base. And this is one of the reasons that I do love these very, very big StarCraft patches, man. Like, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of drama. Yes, a lot of people will disagree. But all of these interactions are fresh. On a 16-year-old game, for really, like, some pretty small changes, right? In the grand scheme of things, the Infestor changes are reasonably small. If you just saw them on a list, you'd be like, yeah, whatever. It makes the Infestor better for sure. But, like, is it really? No! They may actually be the freaking best unit in the game now. It's a little too early to tell. but they've got very real overpowered potential now. Are we going back to the Infestor Terran times? When the Infestors definitely were overtuned? Mana has now taken a fresh base over here in the far upper right. And that's going to be nice. Both players are barely at like 3 base economy right now. 66 workers versus 64 is really not a whole lot. Sort of double expended though towards the bottom left. Mana now wants to make a move on over towards the bottom left though. So he's leaving all of this behind for, yeah, defense. So this is a pretty sweet army, man. Ultraling, not going to be a good army. But look, this is the amount of supply that Mana has to leave behind. That's pretty substantial. Here's the rest of the Protoss army now moving in. Is this... Oh, no, SortOf is out of position. Is this an army that SortOf can fight? 14 Corruptors, 14 Infestors, though. Keep in mind, Microbial Shroud, man. So scary. There's really not that many High Templar available here. If you can mind control a bunch of those units, or Neural Parasite them, that would be a massive deal. Ultras try to cut this off and then realize, wait a second, we are Ultralisks. Maybe we should not try to corner the Immortal Archon Ball like that. Not a great plan. I would really like to see Mana add a few more Immortals in the mix, man. We have 8... Wait, we have 8? I guess it's these ones over here? Yeah. There are actually 8 Immortals out, but... This army does not quite look up to the task. Bringing them all together might be the play. SortOf, by the way, in this particular game, never researching Microbial Shroud. But still having access to it. Despite the fact that he can research the ability. You'll love to see it. Big Zealot run by right now on the right side. We now, by the way, do have all of the gateways transformed into warp gates, but here we go. Mana is sleeping on the job for just a moment, and that is giving SortOf an opportunity to pounce on top of this Protoss army. The High Templar decided to move in for a bit of a feedback shenanigans over here, but that did not quite work out. The Infestors moved so far away, and that means that SortOf took a... Oh no, careful, careful! Where are we going? Jeez. Dude, we kept them alive for such a long time only for them to somehow go around the corner there. Almost a disaster for SortOf still. But at this point, SortOf just grabs pretty much the entirety of the Protoss army. And I think that that is all she wrote for Mana's units. Now, Mana does still have a lot of money available. He's been outmining he's been outmining the Zerg rather for a while. So he can quickly remax. This is all of those warp gates coming into effect. And we're switching on over to a full ground toss army yet again. If SortOf knew, I think he would be switching on over towards a Broodlord army right now. Broodlords would actually be incredible. One of the worst units in the game. But, yeah, maybe even without any balance adjustments. Just with the way that the meta progresses. Broodlords could be kind of sick. Broodlords are the perfect answer. Look at this. Mana cutting off the retreat here on some of the more expensive units here that SortOf has. Looks like the Zerg units will be able to scurry away, and actually that wasn't really that great of a trade for Mana in the end. In the meantime, we have some more Zerg units moving in through the right. Another High Templar will indeed fall. Bunch of Immortals also not living up to their name. We have a bunch of Tempest, or a bunch of Changelings rather, thrown onto the ground. Looks like the Corruptor count has been reduced drastically. Wait a second. We are, still not entirely sure who's going to be winning this game now. Microbial Shrouds get thrown down yet again. Wait, does Microbial Shroud now work on these Archons? They should. These Archons are now taking half damage from Archons. Until right now, and now they don't any longer. Transfusions go down from the Queens. They've not been injecting hatcheries in a while. Is there enough for SortOf to break through? It is honestly a ridiculously close game. Wait a second, Mana's units once more do turn to his side. He's sending out more and more Immortals. He's just rallying whatever he's got across the map. Need to be careful with that. There's no spellcasting anymore, although the Archons themselves will do a really good job at killing Zerglings like this. There's like one more Fungal, I think, available. Oh, we're going to be using the energy for a Microbial Shroud instead. That may have been a mistake. Mana smashing his piggy bank, making a bunch more Immortals, but he wants to strike while the iron is hot. He does bring a High Templar pretty much full of energy in as well. These units, though, were move commanding for a little bit. One of the High Templar here did end up destroying the Infestor. Corruptors up in the air and not really, adding a whole lot to this type of engagement anymore. Another Immortal does wander across the map. This is pretty much the only mining that SortOf has, together with this base. So just sniping a hatchery is a huge deal. SortOf now likewise also spamming all of his money here onto a bunch of additional Ultralisks. Little Zealot run by on the right side. There is a fresh base, but that one is not mining anyways. But it's still going to be a bit of a nuisance. Look at the Archons moving forward. They really want to go after the Infestors. It is now allowing some of the Ultras to get a decent fight. Immortals, though, can kite backwards outside of that shield range of the Microbial Shroud. We still have a bunch of the units up in the air, and I can't believe it. This game, it looked like it was in the bag. Honestly, for both players, about 4 times over. And then it ultimately ends with a Protoss victory. What a ridiculous game of StarCraft 2. GG.